if we're dealing with sadness or we're dealing with anger, what how can music help us and what can we do?
Mm. I think the first way music can help us is showing us that we're not alone in that emotion. Because here is somebody else who, not only somebody else who wrote about it, but someone greenlit it, that, that's, yes, that's going to be on the record.
Good
Someone
point.
decided, like, yes, that's going to go on the internet and be distributed. So I think firstly, it's that piece of you're not alone. And then secondly, I would say, especially with negative emotions, is that it gives you the space to allow those emotions to be expressed, rather than, I feel like we're usually taught to hold that stuff in and to hold ourselves together. And I personally, at this point, don't like to label certain emotions as positive or negative. Like, they all just are,
Mm,
especially with, like, the approach I take with my work is seeing all of your emotions as divine. When you are feeling angry, there's a reason why, and I think that's divine. Like, there's usually with anger, there's like a passion that it's pointing towards. So if you're angry that someone treated you some way at work, maybe you're very passionate about creating new practices for the workplace or something. That's just an
right.
example off the top of my head.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's those two pieces. Like, you're not alone and it gives the space to express it. And when you can express it, you're not holding it in anymore. I think that releases a lot of energy, because
Yes.
when you're going
Mhm.
around, let's say it's like around the holidays, I usually experience emotions of depression. The holidays are a hard time for me, but I've noticed, both with my personal experience and also with clients, when you pretend that you're happy, it takes a lot of energy to pretend, because you're holding in whatever emotion is really there. But if you make
Mm,
space for the emotion that's really there, not only are you freeing up energy from not pretending, but I feel like you're also releasing shame, because you're like, it's okay that I'm this way, rather than, oh, why can't I be happier? Does that make sense?
right. Yes, it absolutely does. And this episode is going to air during the holiday season. So I'm glad you brought
Perfect.
that up. Yeah. Because I'm sure you're not the only one. And even if holidays aren't a source of depression type feelings for people, it could be just stress. All the crazy
Yeah.
family is together, and that creates just different
Yeah.
stuff than
And
every day.
anxiety.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Good point that we really maybe shouldn't use the positive and negative terms in the way that we do. And as you were talking about this, I was thinking maybe part of it is whatever physical actions we're taking when we listen to the music. Maybe we are
Mm.
crying if we're listening to sad music, or we're
Mhm.
jumping around if we
Yeah.
have anger and we have like hard rock on or something. Maybe that's
Yeah.
part of it too.
Definitely. Yeah, I think because then you're releasing, like, you're, like, completing stress cycles in the body,
Hmm.
and, you're allowing, all the energy to flow through you, rather than just sitting still.
Right.
I think it can be very therapeutic to express emotions outwardly.
And I find that if we let ourselves express them, and this is not something I was always good at in my life, they don't hang around as long. We kind of
Yeah.
let it out.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to bring up, because a lot of us are afraid to dive into certain emotions because they're labeled as negative. So when you hear something like, when you do give the space to express that, they don't hang around, I feel like that's helpful for people who might be avoiding certain emotions. Because the flip side of that is, when we avoid feeling our anger or our sadness and our pain, they do hang around,
Mhm.
and then that affects our life at such a big level. I think the biggest way it affects our life is how we relate to other people. And I would argue that the way you relate to other people makes up your life, honestly. because how you're relating to others is probably how you relate to yourself. And what else is there in life besides that? The interrelationships within you and the way you're relating to other humans. What else is there?
I mean, mic drop, basically. I agree. Okay, the episode is over. No, I'm just kidding. I think you're right. What else are we here for besides? Well, I mean, I shouldn't ask that. We could go in a million directions with what are we here for, but we're here in a society where we're relating to ourselves and we're relating to other people, and if we're not doing that, I don't know what we're doing. So
Mhm.
I hear you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about using music to express emotions, and we're both kind of agreeing with each other that maybe it helps emotions pass more quickly. But what's the goal when we're feeling an emotion? Is the goal to feel it? Is the goal to get over it? Is it both of those things? How would you answer that?
Mhm. I would say it's to feel it and to as you feel it, this might sound weird, but as you feel an emotion, especially if you're allowing yourself to dive into it more deeply than you ever have, some new insight or perspective will most likely come through.
Mm,
Like maybe you'll realize, oh, I'm feeling sad because I'm not really exercising or I'm on social media too much. And I would also say that another goal for emotions is to kind of identify what are the emotions that we, because when you talk about creating a life that you love and, setting goals and all that stuff, usually what we want is how we will feel, like we want the house with the picket fence because we think we're going to feel a certain way. Like we really want that feeling. So I would say another goal is to identify what is like a empowering emotion, maybe 1 to 2 empowering emotions that you want
mhm.
to create more space for, and practice feeling that, maybe tying a song that makes you feel that way and making space for that, because part of our evolution, like our minds are so used to focusing on what's wrong and what's negative because our brains are trying to keep
So
us
true.
safe. So it's not the default for us yet in our evolution to focus on, I'm gonna practice being happy. We're like kind of on alert.
I like that. And I'm going to add something here that I really benefited from when I learned it. And that is sometimes when we are asking ourselves, what are a couple of empowering emotions that we want to feel? Like you just said, I think it's hard for us to come up with them, if that makes sense.
Mm,
And
yeah.
people oftentimes, when I talk to them, will describe emotions more about what they're thinking about. And
Yeah, I know, I
you
see
do
that
you
a
know what
lot
I mean?
too. Yeah,
So, I would say it's not crazy to literally Google and say,
yeah,
"What are some empowering emotions?" Like, get the words, because I don't think we always
mhm,
have the words.
yeah, yeah, I see that a lot too. That's why I love to do a body-based approach, because I think the way we are kind of conditioned by our fast-paced modern world is to stay up here. So, yeah, I've experienced that a lot too, that it can be hard to really drop into the body and recognize what we even feel now in the present
Yes.
moment.
Yes. Very true. So let's go into the idea of concerts a little bit, because when you started talking about the body, I know you said something to me previously about live music and how it's not just about hearing it. When it's live, it's about feeling it, which takes us into this kind of body idea. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I'm already, like, beaming just
Yes, she is. She
from
is.
this question, because I'm like, my body is in that experience of, like, there's something so powerful when you're at a live concert and everyone around you knows all the words and you're all singing, like, like, become connected, and That is my favorite feeling in the whole wide world. Like,
I love it.
I really should go to more concerts because I love that. It's my favorite. And something that I have, learned recently is that music has, like, one of the other reasons I know we talked about, the emotional connection, but one of the other things about music is that we used to only be able to hear music when we were in the presence of another person, or maybe, when we were alone with an instrument and we were making the music ourselves. Like, it used to be a part of everyday life. And I would say that maybe attaches a sense of safety and home with music. And
Hmm.
it's only recently that we've been able to listen to music that's like recorded where we're not in the presence of the musicians. And yeah, I forget the question that you asked.
That's okay. That's okay because there's a few ways I can go from that. But so, what is it about live music that is different or makes more of a difference? Is what I was originally asking.
Yeah. I think what's different about live music is you can feel the vibration of all the
Hmm.
instruments. And you're usually, standing up and moving around rather than just, driving in your car or, you know, being still and listening. You're more in the experience, I would say.
That makes sense. Yeah. So we're kind of circling back to saying the physical movement is powerful. And then you make a good point about feeling the vibrations. I don't know that any of us really think about that, but it reminds me of someone who's deaf, for example, can feel the vibrations of music, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so if we can hear it, we don't necessarily think about that, but it certainly is truly happening.
Yeah. Mhm. And there's
Interesting.
something so magical about being again in a space where everyone's singing the songs because you have this kind of like shared language. There are a lot of artists who have global tours and they have fans that don't even speak English, but their music is in English and they know all of the words. And so I feel like music is kind of like it can be like a universal way to connect. And I feel like it's the most effective way to get a message out to the masses because, like we said, with that memory piece in the
Right.
brain, like if something's catchy, it's stuck in the head. And when something's catchy, it's easy to remember it and sing along with it. And yeah, I think that's so beautiful about music that it can really transcend language.
Yeah, you're reminding me when you're saying getting a message out of there were a few, I feel like fundraiser type songs 20 some years ago that of course now I'm not going to be able to say one was We Are the World maybe and then there was something else that I still would be able to sing to today if I heard them. But all these artists got together and they did this, and it was raising money for something. I don't remember what, but that was powerful. And that's kind of what you're saying is getting a message out there that is kind of unifying for people.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah,
It
powerful.
it really heightens the message. That's why there's I mean, this might be off topic, but there's such a difference with a celebrity who's just an actor versus when they're a musician. Like their fame just kind of explodes and it's a little like, oh, it could be like too
Hmm.
much. Like it really like the microphone of it just like reaches all the corners of the earth, whatever it is you're singing. And it's also so timeless. Like I mentioned Led Zeppelin earlier, they were around in the late 60s, early 70s was kind of like their peak. And
Hmm.
they have fans that are like 15 now. Like they'll live on
Absolutely.
forever.
Absolutely. And lots of these bands that were big in the 70s or the 80s or the 90s are out there doing concerts now. So clearly people want to go and
Yeah.
want to see them live too.
Yeah. Yeah, I was just at a concert on Friday, and this was a band that was popular in the late 90s, and the concert was sold out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating. And like I said at the beginning, I feel like I knew music was powerful and I didn't really know why or how. I just kind of added it into my life because I knew that. So this has been helpful to talk about for sure. Now, before we wrap up, is there anything that we haven't really talked about that you would suggest to somebody listening to help them feel their emotions or help them use music as a tool?
Yeah, I would say this is kind of like inspired by how I used to be when I was a teenager. I was very into rock music, and that was like it for me. And also inspired by, I just read, I don't know if there are any Dave Grohl fans, but I just read Dave Grohl's book, Storyteller.
I'm
And
sure there
he
are some fans.
and he was talking about, when Nirvana became very famous and a lot of their earlier fans thought they sold out. I would say not to limit yourself to a certain genre of music. And
Good point.
when I was younger, it was like rock music is what's cool and everything else is lame. But it's like allow yourself that, because we're all multifaceted. It's okay to love Led Zeppelin and Taylor Swift at the same time. Even though they're totally opposites, that's okay. And I think that wide spectrum of genre will also be able to connect you with emotions, because emotion is such a wide spectrum.
Right.
And if you can if you can give a chance to a genre that you don't necessarily like right now, I feel like the journey of, just playing it and trying to listen to it is going to bring some stuff up that I think is important. It might bring up some disgust, and then it's like, okay, well, what can my disgust teach me?
Mm.
Or it might bring
Mm.
up some like, ugh, that's so annoying. I don't like that lyric. Like, for example, when Cardi B came out with WAP, I hated that song so much. I was like, this song is disgusting. Who greenlit this? Like, what is this song? And that trigger was pivotal for me to look at, why does talking about certain parts of anatomy that I have make me feel gross? And that started a big journey for me connecting with my body in a deeper way. So yeah, that's what I would say is like, don't limit yourself to one genre, and allow yourself to explore certain genres and make space for whatever comes up.
I really like that you said that for a couple of reasons. Certainly, the whole body confidence piece is a big one. And I'm sure that hit home for some people as you said that. And secondly, I'm sort of chuckling and I'm going to throw myself under the bus to the country fans when I say this. I am not a fan of country. I just don't really like it. And I make fun of it. I'm sorry to say. However, one of the recent guests on the podcast, actually at this point, a few episodes back, added a country song to the mood lift list. And I'm like, hey, okay, I'm not censoring, add whatever you want. And that's what
Yeah.
she wanted. And so I started listening to it and I was like, let me have an open mind. Let me see. And I kind of liked it. And so I get what you're saying is just to kind of see what comes up and see how you
Mhm.
feel about it.
Yeah. I think I noticed that song on the list because I looked at the link earlier.
Uh
And
huh.
and that one kinda stuck out. I'm like, "Is that a country song?" For some reason, I could tell it was country even though I didn't hit play yet. Maybe it was the album art or something.
It probably was. Yeah. That's funny. But and for other people, they might only like country and they might not want to listen to some other type of thing. So I think
Mhm.
that's really interesting advice that we could all try for sure.
Mhm.